Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Archie Macpherson, and I'm a pensioner. Whatever else I can claim to be, I'm distinctly a pensioner, which is why I think it is appropriate for me to be here today. Now, can I say very quickly, I have a strong historical connection with this city, because in 1962, at the height of the Cuban crisis, I did my first ever commentary for the BBC. Can you imagine thinking of the Armageddon hovering above you? And I had to sit at Douglas Park watching Hamilton Accies against Stennismuir for 90 minutes. It was almost unendurable. And so I've come here today and accepted this invitation warmly. Because, by the way, the historical connection is that is the year that Dundee won the league championship. And then I went on around Europe with wee Jim, and following wee Jim around Europe was some test, I'll tell you, with the Dundee United and the great games that they played. So I have strong associations in terms of football with this city. I'm not going to mention, because of another speaker on the platform, the result at Dens Park last night. So, ladies and gentlemen, why did I accept the invitation? Well, as my wife would verify, anger. Sitting, watching the obfuscation and evasion streaming out of the independence campaign. I couldn't stand it any longer. And unfortunately, there are some people like me who could raise their head above the parapet. Well, I'm doing so now, because it's far too important to sit back and think things will happen. You've got to work at it, as I'll point out at the end. So I say to myself, why in particular? Well, I can tell you philosophically, I don't need to go back to 1320 for a declaration. I can go back to 1945, when I was a kid in arms and my father held me up outside the co-halls in Shettleston in the east end of the city where I grew up, celebrating that victory in 1945, which changed and transformed society, something we must never forget. And then I realized, in retrospect, that these scenes were being replicated throughout the United Kingdom. Our forebears created the welfare state, the educational system, from which myself and others have hugely benefited. And I intend to stick on that particular road, difficult though it may be. Nobody can guarantee anything in political life, especially within the United Kingdom, but it's the right and moral road, because I'm as concerned about food banks in Liverpool as I am if they would be in Glasgow or Dundee. I think part of the movement that I was associated with through my years was compassion for your neighbour and not walking by on the other side. And the values that these people in the South had with me are such that I would have to call them foreigners. And these values we've embodied together, which created the political sense in 45 and then proceeded onwards, would be meaningless. No thanks to that. I couldn't do that. But there's another reason. I went to the opticians to have my eyes tested, a process which many football supporters throughout the land thought I should have done years ago. Anyway, I was tested by this very charming lady, nice lady, and we're talking about the NHS and how to get your cataract operation, etc., and I asked her how she valued it and so on. Now, my wife and myself this year have benefited enormously from the NHS, and it turns my stomach to see the SNP trying to make political capital out of this and distort things the way they've done. But she said to me something very interesting. When I said, and I get taxi drivers now to speak about the referendum to see how they feel. I said, what are you going to do? And she says, you know, I think I'll try yes. It was a comment that sent a chill up my spine. Because, and with respect to the major political figures here, the television debates are accentuating the feeling that this is, one, a personality contest, and two, it's a general election in which you're voting for a president. It's nothing of the kind. Even friends of ours, I have to point out to them, look, I'm not voting for us around this table. How long have we got to go? I'm voting for my kids and their kids and their kids, etc. It hasn't sunk into people yet. So it's your job, not just to listen to fine words, but to go and question these people who are thinking of voting yes. Question them. Somebody came to my door and asked about pensions. I brought up the subject of pensions. There was a glazed look came over their face when I pointed out that the pension system backed up by 65 million people and suddenly transformed into 5.5 million people. Give us an answer to that. Give us something that I could confidently say, yeah, I'll vote yes. Answer, none. Not only on that issue, but on other issues, question them. Ask them to provide the evidence. Ask them to provide certainty. There is no certainty. It is a gamble, as Alistair said publicly on other occasions. It is a huge gamble, and I'm not prepared to take that. I value the things we have at the moment because we were together and should stay together. I know there are some people on the left, like myself, who might consider voting yes. They're not becoming nationalists. Worse, they're becoming parochialists and turning their heads away from the system and the tradition which brought us together and created our society. And I wouldn't have it. That's the right road. The wrong road is the yellow brick road that they are providing, at the end of which, if you know from the film and the book, ends in deception, deceit, and fantasy. So I ask you to go out and campaign personally, meeting people, asking them. It's too important to sit on your backsides and do nothing about it. So my suggestion is go out and positively create the negative that is going to be so productive for us and say, no thanks.